For those who can't see it, the shirt says, "It's dangerous to go alone. Here, take this," handing Thor his hammer. Thor, in his human guise as Dr. Don Blake, is in love with his nurse, Jane Foster. Today's episode explores that. Our villain, the mysterious Mr. Hyde, is kind of a subplot, though an interesting one. Right now, Thor is headed to Asgard to talk to Odin.
Again I come to plead my cause, but this time I shall not leave without the answer I crave.
Again you plague me with your impossible demand? Beware, Thor. Though you be my favorite son, you wear my patience thin.
As the god of thunder, I have the privilege of repeating a request. You must let me marry the earthbound female Jane Foster.
If it's Mary Jane you're after, I can help you. Odin is tired of hearing this. He flat refuses. But Thor has a way around the mismatch of mortal and immortal. Odin has the ability to make Jane immortal.
What? You dare suggest I bestow that great gift on a mere earth girl? For no other purpose than to make her your wife?
Yeah, that about sums it up. Thor is relentless, and finally Odin says, look, if she proves herself worthy of immortality, I'll give it to her. But I'll be watching her closely. That sliver of hope is good enough for Thor for now.
To become immortal, one must be proven to be noble, unselfish, fearless, and possessing virtues far in excess of those which ordinary earthbound humans possess.
Oh, right. Like Loki, for example.
But as Thor hurtles back toward Earth, the evil Mr. Hyde proceeds to his rendezvous with the unsuspecting Dr. Blake.
The time has come for Dr. Don Blake to repay an old debt to Mr. Hyde, and I shall see that I am paid in full.
That's a lot of trouble to go to just to get back $20 you loaned him 10 years ago.
Blake will never suspect that I am the same man who once called himself Calvin Zabo and worked as one of his laboratory assistants.
Dr. Blake caught him stealing medical supplies and fired him. That means it's all Blake's fault his life went south, of course.
For years I had been fascinated by the tale of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I was certain it is indeed possible to change a human being so that his baser nature would take over. I became what I had wanted to become, Mr. Hyde. And with that transformation came a hatred of all humanity, while the power of a dozen men flowed through my veins.
For being so obsessed with the story, I have to conclude that he never actually read it. In fact, I'm convinced nobody in Hollywood ever read it because they all get it wrong. Edward Hyde was never some super strong monster, 7, 10, 36 feet tall. He was a little snake of a man, and his weapon was cunning. He worked as evil behind the scenes and in the shadows, which is why it was so hard for anybody to figure out who he was. I haven't seen a movie or television episode yet that followed the story. Fancy effects are more important than getting it right.
To the task at hand, my revenge upon Dr. Blake. Are you Nurse Jane Foster?
Yes. Who are you? What do you want?
Take me to Dr. Blake at once.
Of course, just have a seat and read a magazine until she calls you. By the way, the doctor isn't in.
And at this very moment, the mighty Thor swings into Dr. Blake's private office through an open window, hearing the harsh voice which demands to see him, but not dreaming of the menace who possesses that voice. Quickly, the thunder god stamps his enchanted hammer once upon the floor and instantly becomes the lame Dr. Blake.
Never mind, he's in.
Doctor, I wanted to warn...
Silence, woman! It is too late for words.
I don't know who you are, but I'm not used to having my door bashed in. I must distract him with talk till I can grab my cane. There, I've got it.
Why wasn't he already holding it? Doesn't he use it to walk?
Fool! You think you can hurt me with that puny stick? You're through, Blake!
Don't! Don! Oh!
You never got around to telling him who you are, so he'll never know why you did this. Some revenge. Dr. Blake manages to maneuver himself so he can hit his cane against the wall, and now it's Thor's turn.
Jane, what happened? Are you all right?
I don't know. He called himself Mr. Hyde. Then he pushed Dr. Blake from the window.
Do not fear for his safety. I grabbed Blake before he struck the ground.
Oh, thank heavens. I was so worried.
She seems to love Blake as much as I love her. If only I could tell her my secret.
Wouldn't Odin love that? But there's no time for cuddling right now. He has to deal with Mr. Hyde.
Now that I have had my revenge on Don Blake, I can concentrate on committing the greatest crime of the century. With my superhuman strength and my ability to change identities, I can never fail.
Remember he said that.
We bring you a special news bulletin. Dr. Donald Blake was miraculously saved after a near-fatal fall from his office window by the arrival of the mighty Thor.
Sure sounds like a fail to me, but what's this about changing his appearance whenever he wants to?
When I take this potion, I will look like the mighty Thor himself. It's done. Now, Thunder God, I'll ruin your precious reputation.
The potion even works on his clothes. He's been a busy little lab rat. Suddenly, Thor has robbed a bank.
Surrender, Thor! We know you robbed that bank.
What? I surrender? They're speaking to me as though I were a fugitive.
Fireman, we can't take any chances. He's too powerful.
Remember the old days when cops could shoot anybody they felt like just in case? Good times.
I can easily deflect their bullets with my enchanted mallet, but I've got to get away and discover why they treat me as a criminal.
There's a mortal device called a radio that might help you with that. Back at his office, he changes to Dr. Blake to think about this. It's not much of a stretch to figure out that Mr. Hyde impersonated Thor. He'll need to...
Oh, there you are, Don. I thought you'd forgotten your promise to take me to dinner tonight.
He'll need to run home and change because taking a lovely lady to dinner in a lab coat is a little gauche.
Oh, yes, of course, Jane, dear. I've been looking forward to it. I'll pick you up at 8. I've made a reservation at the Ritz Terrace.
The Ritz Terrace, eh? Well, I'll have a little surprise for you both.
They really do have it bad for each other, but it was not to be. It happened well after these cartoons, but eventually Odin did agree to make her immortal, even gave her the ability to fly. She couldn't handle it and begged to be mortal again. That was the end of that. Not long after, Thor met Sif, who was supposed to be the most beautiful goddess in Asgard, even though I thought she looked like someone smushed her face with a frying pan. When I quit reading, they had a pretty good thing going. Hyde takes them to his hideout where he ties Blake to a post.
Now, before I leave, I'll set this time bomb to go off in 24 hours. And only I know how to shut it off. So if anything happens to Mr. Hyde, you are doomed.
24 hours. It's nice of him to give Blake plenty of time to escape. He takes Jane with him to commit the crime of the century.
Why did you come here?
This is where I shall execute the crime of the century.
What do you plan to do?
I'm about to steal a Polaris submarine.
There never was a Polaris submarine. There were submarines that carried Polaris missiles, but what kind of sub they were depended on whether they belonged to the United States or the United Kingdom. The upshot is, if he succeeds, he'll have nuclear capability. I'm pretty sure we don't want that.
Once the sub is mine, I shall roam the seas like a king. And you shall become my queen.
Oh, I dare not try to escape, since only Hyde can save Don Blake.
Apparently she's forgotten that Thor has taken a special interest in Don Blake. All he has to do is get Blake out of there, and Mr. Hyde will have succeeded in blowing up his own hideout. I doubt that's a big loss to the world. And that's just what Thor is doing, because Dr. Blake has managed to maneuver himself to where he can grab his cane.
And I can snap these heavy ropes as if they were threads. Although I do not know where Hyde is gone, I'll scour the city until I find him. For find him I must.
I'm sure you're intimately familiar with Jane's perfume, so just follow your nose.
Thor!
Turn and face me, Hyde. Face the one who will destroy you.
If you want me, Thunder God, come and get me.
No power on earth will stop me.
Except the power of Mr. Hyde. That would have killed anyone else, but it barely slowed him down.
You do understand what a god is? I'm gonna say no.
I've got you, and now with my great strength, I'll finish you off forever.
Yeah, keep telling yourself that while he snaps the ropes and throws you halfway to Kansas.
You dare mention your strength when you speak to the mighty Thor?
Thank heavens. Thor is beating him. Wait, what am I thinking? If anything happens to Hyde, that bomb will go off where Dawn is imprisoned.
Thor dropped his hammer while he was playing with Hyde. She covers it with a canvas in hopes that he won't find it.
My hammer. Where is it? Only a few seconds left. I'll use my cape in order to create a tornado within this small area.
Then, as the sudden fury of the storm blows the deadly weapon from the hand of Mr. Hyde, the fateful 60 seconds are up. And the mighty Thor turns back to the mortal form of Don Blake.
One of the main features of the hammer was the fact that it always returned to his hand, except when it didn't. In the tornado he created, he manages to crawl across the floor and find the hammer. Once he's Thor again, it's time to finish this.
Thor, you have your hammer again. You must let Mr. Hyde escape.
Stand aside, woman.
Please let him go.
Thanks to that witless female, I shall escape.
Poor Jane. I cannot tell her that I am Don Blake.
Look, it's Hyde. He's escaping.
We know now that it was Hyde that impersonated you, Thor.
And you figured this out. How? That's some world-class detective work. But now Thor has another problem.
As Thor hurtles through the sky to put the mind of the woman he loves at ease,
He's pretending to go rescue himself. If he had been thinking, he would have told Jane he already did, but it's been a long day.
suddenly the scowling face of Odin appears before him.
You dared ask me to make that female immortal?
But father, wait.
Silence! I saw her thwart your efforts to capture an evildoer. She is unworthy. Petition denied.
It'd be easy to come down on Odin for not considering why she did it, but he's right. She's not ready for immortality. She got it into her head that the only way to save Dr. Blake was to let Hyde escape. But Hyde already said he was going to kill Blake, so I don't know what made her think he'd go back and defuse the bomb. If she had let Thor capture and subdue him, he could have forced Hyde to disarm the bomb, which would guarantee that Blake was okay. She couldn't think that through and wound up letting Hyde get away to reap more evil in the future. In other words, Odin is correct not to make her immortal, because she's not too bright.
Cross the rainbow bridge of Asgard, where the booming heavens roar. You'll behold in breathless wonder the god of thunder, mighty Thor.
Yes. Little snake of a man, and I can say snake.